March 31st, 2001 was when, unfortunately, the Sega Dreamcast was discontinued and ended consoles for Sega. Because unfortunately, this didn't do as much as the other consoles, like the Sega Genesis, for example, which sold 30.75 million units. And then compare that to the Sega Dreamcast's sales, and then that only sold 9.13 million units instead of the high prices like the Genesis did. So Sega's newest console at the time was a failure, and unfortunately ended the line of Sega consoles. So where would that lead for Sonic to be ended up on? Well, there had to be a certain agreement, because Sega obviously wasn't going to give up on the Hedgehog, so he needed to be published on other consoles. And with other consoles, their biggest rival. The next Sonic game after that, at least a mainline one, was Sonic Heroes, released on the GameCube, the Xbox, and PlayStation. Not just Nintendo, but also Microsoft and PlayStation, because there was nowhere else for Sonic to go. I mean, it was that or the Atari, no one's gonna play that. And Sonic Heroes did good, released on the consoles I mentioned, and then a follow-up line of other Sonic games from the Wii to the Wii U and to now on the Nintendo Switch, as well as other consoles like the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. And from that, from 2003 to now, in 2023, there's been many lines of Sonic games that are released on all the consoles, but some either are good or did very, very bad, as you could say, because it's still the same game. They just kind of screwed it over. Like I said, in today's standards, all the Sonic games are released on PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch, but everyone knows that Switch graphics aren't the best compared to PS5's graphics. I mean, sometimes when I'm playing Fortnite, it feels like I'm playing a freaking slideshow. And when I'm talking about the Sonic games, I'm not talking about the 8-bit classic games, because like I said in the previous video, they just keep trying to resell that game and other classics over and over and over again. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the 3D Sonic games, and starting with Sonic's first transition into 3D, for the GameCube at least. Sonic Adventure, a great game in the series, which originally released on the Sega Dreamcast a year after the console's release. Oh, I'm sorry, a month after the console's release, as a holiday launch title, which sold 2.5 million copies. But that being Sega's last console, like I said, Sonic games have to be launched on other consoles. So in 2001, on the GameCube, from 1980 to 89, 5 years later, in 2003, I'm guessing around after Heroes, Sonic Adventure DX came out as a GameCube port. Now, obviously with the DX in the name, I'm guessing it means Sonic Adventure Deluxe, but I just see people mainly just call it DX instead of Deluxe. Now, before I talk about the game itself, look at the box art. Instead of the original Adventure art style, which was 2D on the original cover from the Dreamcast, you got this 3D one with Chaos and Sonic on the front. I personally like both, but if you want, leave in the comments of what you think is better. Now, in this GameCube port, it changed most of the lighting of the game, and even changed some of the models, which from them looking blocky, rounded out the edges of most of the models, as you can see from this side by side.
Oh yeah! This is happening! What's up? Yeah! This could be fun!
They smoothed out all the models and changed up a few things, and even for the Sonic's model mainly, because around this time when Sonic Heroes rolled around, Sonic's eyelids were blue instead of peach, and from this cutscene when his eyes are closed, his eyelids are now blue instead of peach like in the original. And like I said, they changed the box art from 2D to 3D, but was there a reason why it says Director's Cut specifically on DX's title? I'm not sure why. Knowing it being a port, it does say that for Director's Cut means it reflects on the director's original intentions for the game, or just anything like a movie, for example. And surprisingly, Sonic Adventure transitioned from 30 frames into 60 frames. And in the game, you can collect Embles, which unlocks many Sonic Game Gear titles, such as Sonic Drift. But also has Cream as an Easter egg, so that's cool. Though I'm not sure if this is a completely new model for Cream, because when I look at it, if you look at the eyes, it kind of resembles the one from Heroes. Though that is just what I think. I could most likely be wrong about this. So on to the next Sonic game. Now this game is just iconic. Sonic Adventure 2, released on the Dreamcast back in June 23rd, his birthday, in 2001. The game sold 3 million copies, in which had the Dreamcast being discontinued, and like I said, it had the same treatment as SA1, being ported to the GameCube, which comes Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Now, just like SA1, the box art was changed, except this one stays 2D instead of going into 3D. And like for the new box art that it has going from like hero to neutral to dark, with it obviously representing the hero Chao, the dark Chao, and the regular Chao. I'm just saying, I still can't believe it took them this long, and we still do not have a Chao God in any other Sonic game. And even just like Sonic Adventure, the models were smoothed out and the lines, which is why Sonic's hands look more rounder, as well as everyone else's. Except there was one difference, but I'll talk about other stuff first. Like of the GameCube port having more details in the backgrounds and even adding the Chao Karate minigame. And both of the models, even with the original one being made different, they can't make them as expressive as before, as for the mainly more expressive faces from a Sonic Adventure 1, which became memed on. So the thing I said that was kind of a problem in my opinion is that compared to the original one of Sonic Adventure 2, things just look darker and dimmer in this one. Like look at the side-by-side of Knuckles' model transitioning into Sonic Adventure 2 Battle's model. It looks dimmer and all the like lighting is gone out of it. Not to mention it was kind of very inconsistent, which led them to reusing the Adventure 2 models in Adventure 2 Battle, which is why for the beginning part, there's like a slight glimpse of Sonic becoming his Adventure 2 model instead of the Battle one, and the same goes for Shadow. But this does also run at 60 FPS. Again, like I said, at the beginning when Sonic's jumping off the plane, there's like a slight glimpse that the model switches from the GameCube model into the Dreamcast model, which is very weird. I thought that was kind of odd when I first found out. But it does happen only for a second though, so you can't really tell. And it's not just GameCube, but even on PC. But overall, it's the same game. You could go either way. You could choose the original or the GameCube ports, because it's still Sonic Adventure 2 either way. And I know that we're all hoping they play Live and Learn during the scene that they're most likely definitely going to do in the third Sonic movie. Sonic Unleashed. I love this game. It's a great Sonic game because from what I heard, people either say this is their favorite Sonic game or it's the best Sonic game, which I agree with. And then when it was first launched, IGN gave it a 4.5, those savages. Do you believe that IGN got some guy who literally didn't even boost at all in the review, and yet these are the same people that gave Sonic 4 an 8 and gave this game a 4.5? Like, that doesn't make sense. Not to mention the guy in the video reviewing the game says that the game is too fast.
There's one thing you should know about Sonic Unleashed before spending your hard-earned money on it. It's a big piece of garbage. Big piece of garbage. Now, I have a theory when it comes to Sonic games. Someone at Sega hates the Hedgehog with all his might, and he's going about trying to sabotage the franchise with these awful games. There are night team stages which are actually complete rubbish, and then there's also the hub city where you do a lot of exploration stuff, and that's boring as can be. Of trial and error gameplay that can get a little bit repetitive after a while. Oh yeah, and you have stretchy arms, because, you know, everybody knows that werewolves have stretchy arms. However, Team Sonic didn't want to let any slip-ups happen. They had to make this game bad.
Is this serious?
You're playing a freaking Sonic game. He's gonna go fast. He's the fastest thing alive. If you want something slow for your standards, why don't you go play Bob the Snail? Sonic Unleashed released November 18th in 2008, and this game came out on all platforms and sold 2.45 million units. And at this point, Sonic games were just being releasing on Nintendo consoles. At this point, they were released on PlayStation and Xbox at this point, like Xbox 360 and PlayStation 2 and 3. Now, knowing that this is the first one that actually has more than just one port release, I'm gonna go from least to greater, and starting on PS2, holy Sonic looks freaking huge, and there's no detail anywhere. It looks so bland. Not to mention, for the Sonic model, when it goes close up on his face, he is you can see the edges on his fingers, and there's no detail in his eyes. He doesn't even have a mouth. His mouth is gone. Why does everything look like it was just much and smeared paint everywhere? The sky's f***ed up, the floor is f***ed up, Sonic is f***ed up. Everything is wrong in this port. This is the worst one. Even when moving on to the Wii, it's slightly better because, I mean, it's still running off from the PS2. But then we transition over to the PS3, and this is a huge change. This is a way better experience. It looks so good with the graphics, and there's actually good grass, and it's all moving in the wind with the flowers. The Sonic isn't huge. And even on Xbox, it's darker, but it's the same thing. These look way better than the previous ones. Isn't it weird of how this game was released in 2001, yet its CGI cutscenes and the regular cutscenes look better than like Frontiers, for example, and Forces? No slander on Frontiers, definitely slander on Forces and Lost World. I just hate Lost World so much. For gameplay wise, obviously for PS2 and Wii, it's the same thing, but it is really smooth and great on Xbox 360 and PS3, because Jesus Christ did that look awful. And Jesus, these backgrounds and lighting, the atmosphere, everything looks so good. And it's a Sonic game that just has to have Jason Griffith. I love his take on Sonic so much. Plus, not to mention, I don't even think you can even go in the hub worlds on PS2 and Wii. Though as for the cutscenes, I'm pretty sure, because I remember actually seeing it from my brother playing it, they're the same cutscenes from PS3 and Xbox, but they're compressed down to fit the standards of those consoles. Same thing either way. You can go either way, just don't pick Wii or PS2. Not to mention, some of the levels are cut out in those ones compared to Xbox and PS3. I can't believe we're in this era already. Sonic Colors. It was made exclusive just for the Wii back in November 11th in 2010. Not a bad Sonic game to say, but not a great one either. It introduced the Whiz, which people hated, and how did this game sell 4.0 million copies? Look, this did better than the Avenger games and even Unleash. I don't even know how that happened. Like, the story for the game sucks. Like, Sonic's characterization is awful. How did this game sell that much? And then flash forward to 2021, Sega announces a remake for the game, well, mainly just a port, of Sonic Colors. Out of all the games they could have remade, it had to be this one. And I had a Wii back when I was little, like I said before, so I never got to play Sonic Colors, because it was originally on the Wii, and it was my brother's Wii. So when I heard about this, I thought I was gonna actually buy this until the game came out, and Jesus Christ! What happened to Sonic? What did they do to him? So Sonic Colors Ultimate came on all platforms, and it did awful. Before I get into the main stuff, look at the cutscenes. For a side-by-side, They just rounded out the edges like they did for the previous games, except those ones also just for the models. For the cutscenes, they just rounded out the edges to make it more smoother in the cutscenes. There's literally someone else who made the same cutscene in Blender and it looks way better. They used the Forces models instead of the same models from Colors. I can only imagine they only did this because either they just got lazy or they just did this just to put all the money towards Sonic Frontiers. That's not an excuse because there are so many things wrong. Like, why does Sonic go out of bounds after being launched by a rail? Why does he get trapped under stages and stage littering causes Sonic to be flung out of bounds, which also happens on the Wii, which I didn't know, and the game would just straight up crash and you can clip out of bounds with the Jade Wisp, and this causes seizures and corrupt save data. And that's just on Xbox and PlayStation 4 now. For Switch, you thought Sonic 06 loading screens were long. For the first level you play in Sonic Colors Ultimate, it is so long. You can literally start it, go to your kitchen, warm up a few Hot Pockets, come back, and then it's still loading. Not to mention, after it does load, you play the game, it says Sonic Colors, but you know what happens. After you beat it, it won't process, it'll crash, and you have to redo the entire level, and the loading screen still loads long, which wastes your time. And what I'm showing for this isn't any of my footage, because I didn't buy it because I knew what was gonna come. So these causes seizures, so this is a seizure warning. So skip this part of the video if you have any seizures or can get any. So take a look. Holy sh! What am I looking at? What am I supposed to be looking at? Everything is a pixelated mess. It's bright. Everything looks smeared. I can't even tell what world this is supposed to be, nor what level is even showing. You know in Spider-Verse, when if you're in the right universe, you start glitching out and spazzing? Well, Sonic must not either had his day pass, or he just doesn't belong here, because he glitches out like crazy. And as you start to move, again, look away, he just starts becoming a multicolored mess. This is more buggy than Sonic 06. Not to mention, he glitches out so much, he turns into a fish. I repeat, a fish. How do you even code that? How is that even in the game files for him to just glitch into that? It's not subtle at all either. The screen glitches so much. And this was so bad, there literally had to be a patch for a game that was already released and had no problems. Now, how do you f up this bad? I don't know. It's Sega. At the time, it was that Sonic team. I do not know. Anyways, moving on. Sonic Generations, the game that brought back every era of Sonic from the classics to now, at least at that time. And at the time, it made me wonder, how was classic Sonic from another dimension and not from the past? Good thing they changed that now. Released in November 2011, a year after Colors, on all platforms, first on the 3DS, and why is 3D Sonic in 2D sections? 2D Sonic, yes, that makes sense, but why is 3D Sonic also in 2D sections? And it's just 2D. 3D Sonic has no 3D sections. Just looks like an earlier start to Sonic 4. Not to mention, everything just looks so sloppy, and the models are not good. There's literally a screenshot of the game, not from the game, but from a cutscene in the other version when Sonic is looking at the other Sonic. It's just a screenshot. There's no dialogue in this game. They did it sloppy, made by Dims. The game looks atrocious and it looks very bad. The game sold 1.85 million copies. Not saying anything about that, I just forgot to mention it, and I just hate this. So moving on to PS3, and oh my god, this looks even better. Like it's like the same thing for Unleashed. This looks a huge step up. The levels have so much detail, the models, the cutscenes not as good as Unleashed is, but still, even Modern Sonic is in 3D cutscenes. Well, not cutscenes, but 3D layouts and not 2D like classic Sonic. The levels get even greater detail, like look at Speed Highway or just Green Hill itself. Even Classic Sonic does the thing that he gets irritated if you don't move. It's the same thing for Xbox 360, which is just like how it's the same thing for Unleashed, but against the same thing. Just don't play the 3DS one. It's bland, looks like crap, just play the console ones. Though I have heard for the 3DS version of Sonic Generations, unlike the console ones, Casino Nights is just basically just a straight up pinball minigame, while on the 3DS version for Classic Sonic, it's just a 1-to-1 scale of the exact same pinball. Casino Nights from originally in Sonic 2, like a 1-to-1 scale, but that doesn't get any points, it still looks like crap. It's either playing a 1-to-1 sloppy scale of Casino Nights or being a gambling addict. Sonic Lost World, and launched on the Wii U on October 18th, 2013, a crappy game on a crappy console, and this game sold less than Forces, being the lowest selling Sonic game in the series, because it didn't even break 1 million and only sold 100,000 copies. That is rough, buddy. And I bet they wondered why it did very bad. Tough my guy. Now, like Generations, this was also ported to the 3DS by Dimps. And for the 3DS, the game looks just as atrocious as Generations, okay. On 3DS, what can you expect? Everything looks all grim and cheap compared to the Wii U, and the cutscenes have low resolution, and quality is nothing in this. Not to mention, this isn't anything about it, but did anyone else find it weird in Sonic Lost World that if you get all the Chaos symbols, his mouth just goes on both sides? He has 2 mouths. Because you know how in Sonic Unleashed, they tried to do a thing like for, like example of Mickey Mouse, so no matter on what side the character's facing, the mouth would always be on that side. And they just forgot to do this and made it look very bad, so we just have two mouths and it's only on the Supersonic model. Not sure why and how they did that. Just went on a little rant right there. I still hate this game. And now, Sonic Superstars, released back in October on the 17th, and I'm not gonna say a lot from my experience since I want to do that and cover all of that in a different video, but I experienced a lot of glitches in this game that started out funny at first, but then eventually when it came to the final boss, became very irritating. Such as one of the main glitches of you drowning above water. And also, speaking of the final boss, someone somehow found a glitch that literally straight up skips the final boss itself. Like, look at this clip. How the f did they do that? I do not know. And there's even a glitch that this person somehow found out that you can literally duplicate yourself. I do not know how this even happened or how this was somehow coded into the game. Even has a very debug menu, which is dumb. And I'm only saying this because it also released on Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation, and people mainly found this out when they somehow got the game early, because it came out early for some places. That was hell for me because I had to make sure I didn't get spoiled, and that's when they found out about the glitches. And mainly for the music it has, other than Pinball Carnival Act 1 and 2, Press Factory Act 1, and Golden Capital Act 2. Same for Sanctuary Act 1. I love those ones. Especially the main theme for the opening. They should have just kept Telos. I'm just saying they had Sanctuary. And that's all the ports for the Sonic games. As you see, it got worse and worse. And when I mean getting worse and worse, I mean when it hit for Sonic Unleashed. Not for the game itself, but for the ports mainly from PlayStation, or at least the other consoles, as the PS2 and the Wii. Now, I didn't go over Sonic Heroes because I honestly couldn't find anything different about that, because if you look at this image, it literally just looks straight up the same one by one. Like, you can't tell me I had to do something on this because it looks the same on GameCube, Xbox, and PlayStation. But overall, in the end, how did they not fix the god-awful voice lines in this game? Like, what are they doing?